Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome. Friday, January the 19th, 2024. Happy Friday to you all. Hope you're all doing well. I, of course, am Chris Phillips, your host of SEC Unfiltered Live. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. I see Bruce. I see Ethan K already in the chat. What's going on, guys? Appreciate you all tuning in. We have got a jam-packed show for you here on this Friday. You know, it's fun, guys. Sometimes some of the subject matter is premeditated, right? Even the night before, I'm sitting there thinking about, okay, I really want to touch on this. I want to hit on this. Some things sort of just spur the moment, right? They come up last minute, decide, you know what, let's talk about this. Let's hit on this on the show. Because I thought to myself right before we went live, you know, I'm still honestly, guys, if I'm being transparent, I'm still getting accustomed to thinking about, okay, Texas, Oklahoma, SEC, Texas, Oklahoma, SEC, and not looking at them as an outsider, right? It's an adjustment for us all. So I figured after yesterday, we talked about all the horns down stuff and everything that happened with Rodney Terry. Let's talk about Texas football, and even not just Texas football, but Texas as a whole coming into the SEC. Are they not only ready for the SEC grind, but are they ready to thrive and take over, especially with the retirement of Nick Saban? Does that clear the path for the Texas Longhorns, if you will? So we'll talk about that, guys. Also, of course, we'll look ahead to a jam-packed slate of SEC ball games tomorrow, guys. Hardwood action, if you will. Got a ranked-on-ranked matchup with Auburn Ole Miss. We got Alabama and Tennessee. South Carolina and Arkansas is a big one for those two programs. Texas, A&M, LSU. The list goes on and on, guys. I'll break down those games in their entirety and lock in some picks for the weekend action as well. Also, guys, we touch on a topic that I brought up for just a moment yesterday. But since then, we've ran some polls, and we've asked you guys specifically, and I want to go through the results and give my opinion on it. What is the second most popular sport in the SEC? We all know football is king, but when it comes to the second most popular, is it basketball or is it baseball? And before you scoff, I think there's a real conversation to be had there. Also, guys, taking your questions, your comments, and your calls, as we always do in the second hour in our daily mailbag segment. I want to hear from you. I want you all to be part of the show. You can call that number or text that number. That is 843-790-3377. Also, guys, we're kicking off the show with our good friend Brandon Marcello of 24/7 Sports, talking all things college football, NIL, portal, Nick Saban's retirement. Guys, he also had a great piece this morning that we dive deeper into on, you know, he talked with other coaches about what's going on at Alabama right now with the portal and the mass exodus, if you will, of that roster. I think what you're going to hear from Brandon and the responses from those coaches is not what you would expect. I'll leave it at that until we get in the conversation. Guys, as always, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you get notifications as well when we go live and when we drop new video content. Also, guys, the podcast, SEC Unfiltered, drops every single day. iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, you can find it there, guys. Drops daily at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's when the podcast is released. Also, guys, of course, across social media. You can follow us anywhere and everywhere you get your content, guys. Content bleeding out of the eyeballs as always. And again, thank you all so much, guys, for yet another successful week. Can really start to feel the SEC Unfiltered momentum rolling. We dropped 2 great pieces on our website this morning. We got a third scheduled to come out after the live show today in regards to articles on secunfiltered.com. Please be sure to go check out all the work, guys. That's only going to increase. And a day like today, that's what you can expect from SEC Unfiltered moving forward, right? Are going to be a ton of different contributors, ton of different articles on the website. We're going to have other shows that join this network as well. Also, guys, with that being said, be sure to go follow my personal pages at CPhilly19. A lot of my predictions and prognostications and opinions are going to be coming from those personal accounts because, again, SEC Unfiltered is not a one-man show. We got a team full of contributors. I'm excited as we grow this thing out, we expand. Be sure to go follow all of our great contributors on social media, including yours truly. So again, guys, thank you all so much for the love, the support. Really excited about where we are right now and where we are going as well. With that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. Our good friend Brandon Marcello, he's one of the best in the business, a national college football analyst for 24/7 Sports. He took the time, guys, to sit down and chat with us. So sit back, relax, enjoy this conversation with our good friend Brandon Marcello. Brandon Marcello joins the show once again. He's a national college football reporter for 24/7 Sports, does a fantastic job talking all things college football. Brandon, appreciate you taking the time, my friend. How are you?
Doing well. Just when you thought things were going to slow down, Nick Saban retires. So,
Brandon, we'll jump right into that. What were your immediate reactions, your immediate thoughts when he hung it up? Was there anything this season? Again, you follow college football as closely as anyone. Was there anything that stood out to you this season in particular versus past seasons where you thought, okay, this may be a possibility, or did it take you by surprise like it did so many others?
yeah, I mean, why was Nick Saban so relaxed during the season and before? It was weird. It's crazy. Just to share a little personal anecdote, I was in a meeting in Nashville, had just left the coaches convention, annual coaches convention, and we were in there talking about, what's on the horizon, what's going on, coaching carousel slowing down, and I had mentioned to a couple of colleagues, I go, hey, what if Saban retires? Like, who do they hire? Um, and then one of my colleagues said, don't put that out there. Just don't even put that in the universe. And then we had a meeting with three of us, and our boss mentioned Saban, like, what if Saban retires and all this stuff and all this. And my other colleague said, don't put that in the universe either. And then while we're still sitting there in the meeting, 10 minutes later, the announcement's made, and my colleague goes, Saban just retired. And the boss was like, are you kidding? No, Saban just retired. And it was a mad scramble, and we had to go on set and do a bunch of video hits and stuff. And I missed my flight, and so I blame Nick Saban for keeping me from going home for 12 hours. But no, it's I think we'll all remember kind of where we were at. If you're a college football fan, we'll remember where we're at when Saban retired, and that's my "where was I" story.
And Brandon, I'm sure Alabama fans are going to blame you for it happening, for speaking at the universe when they hear this conversation. Again, you've been around college football, Brandon, for a long time. You've been around Nick Saban. You've covered him. You've interacted with him, had conversations with him. What's your favorite memory of Nick Saban? Maybe something not so much necessarily on the field with his Alabama Crimson Tide team, but maybe a personal interaction or just memory that you have of him in college football.
Well, I got a couple. One was back in, I think, 2014 or 15. I think it's 14. Or maybe it was still 2013. Anyway, it's back when Saban was just starting his crusade against hurry up offenses and clock management stuff. And I was at another coaches convention, minority coaches of Georgia, mostly high school coaches. And a bunch of college coaches go there to speak, and Saban was one of them. And I remember we had a small room where he was going to come talk to the media that was there. It was like four of us. And I remember one of his handlers asked us to leave the room, and they lined us up against a wall in a hallway. And then he came through almost like a procession and introduced himself. Says, hi, I'm Nick, to every single person. And funny enough, my wife was with me at the time, just because she wanted to come with me, and they lined her up against the wall, not knowing who she was. And Nick saying, hi, I'm Nick. And she's like, hi, I'm Amanda. But, and then we went in that room, and he was prepared. It was the first time really he discussed his crusade against hurry up offenses and health and everything. And I remember someone just asked about it, and he was prepared. He went into this, I can't remember doing the story, but it was something like an 8-minute answer with no interruptions, anything. And you're like, whoa, this guy was well prepared for this. He knows what he wants. That, and then also just like before, SEC Media Days, they'd bring in a few of us national reporters, and I got to do that the last 3 years or 2 years, I guess. Like just having like 15 minutes of off the record conversation with them, and I always very much enjoyed that.
Now, Brandon, we all know Kalen DeBoer, the next head coach at Alabama, that era beginning in Tuscaloosa. The last week plus or so has been madness when it comes to the transfer portal, the mass exodus, if you will, at not just Alabama, but I think you posted at Washington. I think they have 2 guys coming back from their 2 deep from the national championship team next year. I mean, they've been just as gutted as anybody, but I want to go to that brings me to a great piece that you wrote and was published this morning. It's titled Rival Coaches to Tide. Welcome to the portal, or welcome to the portal party, Big Al. I highly encourage everybody listening to go check it out. But you talk about in this piece, again, you've had conversations with the coaches, and what I thought was really interesting is, again, rival fans would expect, maybe other coaching staffs or people to be celebrating this downfall of the Crimson Tide. And, nobody's going to feel bad for Alabama, right? I've heard that a lot over the last week plus. But your piece was really interesting from your conversations with other coaches. It sounds like there's actually a lot of empathy for what Bama's going through and sort of this wild, wild west we're seeing in the portal. Just talk about that piece, if you will, and what you've picked up from the conversations with other anonymous coaches, if you will, about just what's taking place in Tuscaloosa and how maybe I thought was interesting. You said that was something that, let's face it, probably forced Nick Saban out of the game.
Yeah, it's crazy. I reached out to about a couple dozen coaches and personnel administrators as well, player personnel guys across the country. And I didn't have one single response, either text or phone conversation, that was, it's feeding time, or, the Alabama's going to fall and we're going to be able to take advantage. This is going to be good for college football. Nope, every single one of them in some way or form mentioned NIL, the transfer portal, and obviously what Saban's going through, or not Saban, Alabama's going through right now. But they were like really concerned about going, well, maybe this is an opportunity here. Finally, everybody's going, wow, look, you see what's going on to Alabama? And a lot of these coaches are like, this has been happening to a certain extent to a lot of teams for the last 2 to 3 years. And we've been talking about it. No one's really been listening. And those who have been listening have been unwilling to make changes or look at the unintended consequences. And the fact of the matter is listen, the transfer portal can be good for college football. It is what it is. And I'm not going to interject my own opinion on it. I'm one of both way. I can go either way with it. But the issue here is it's like the rules change over and over and over again. They're like makeshift rules. And then something bad happens and then they change it. They shrink the windows. Obviously you want to allow player to enter the free market and everything. But the issue that a lot of coaches have is just the timing of when a coach is fired or resigns or retires. And in the case of Alabama and Washington and the domino effect that have happened from there is that we don't see many job changes in January or February. And we particularly have never seen it with playoff teams. I mean, you not just had Saban retire, which was going to send dominoes falling everywhere, but you had another playoff team lose their coach to Alabama. And it's just like the perfect storm. And then now we're seeing more unintended consequences of, well, players are allowed to enter the portal for 30 days, but the portal's closed to everybody else, and everybody else has already found new homes. So Alabama, Washington, Arizona, San Jose State, Buffalo, they're all sitting there in the cold going, we got no way to stop the bleeding by adding players of any comparable talent, especially when you're Washington and especially Alabama. Alabama's lost 23 players and counting from their 2 deep. Washington has lost 30. Not a single starter on offense returns. That's not even the same team, let alone it's not going to resemble anything that they had last season. You could go and take these players in the portal or have left or whatever, Alabama, and start building a team off that nucleus and have a top 15 team. I mean, if a coach was able to gobble them all up, they'd have a top 15 team. So, but the coaches that I spoke to were like, well, if they were having a little smirk, a couple of coaches were like, well, welcome to our pain. This is what we've been dealing with. You're just another one of us now, Alabama. But they're also going, well, we see what's possibly going to happen in May when the portal opens back up May 1st. I had one coach in the Big 12, a head coach in the Big 12 go, don't you see what's going to happen? The portal's going to open up May 1st, and Alabama is going to be hunting. They're going to go after any and every player that they can that they see fits their system, blue chip guys. And, you're not going to throw accusations out there, but tampering is an issue. It happens everywhere. It happens even for coaches who are not aware of it. Boosters and others reaching out to players, high school coaches reaching out to players saying, hey, would you be interested in going here or there? It's just the Wild West. I know that term has been so overused these last 3 years, but it truly is. And now you got some coaches, especially that one Big 12 head coach, who says, yeah, woe is me for Alabama now. But in May, they're going to be picking all of our rosters apart because they're going to be one of the few rosters out there that need a lot of additions, talking like 15 players potentially. And they're going to go after 4 and 5-star type of guys who might already be on rosters now that are happy, but might be enticed to go there from other boosters and NIL deals. And it's going to happen fast and furiously because, again, we're in a new portal window. It used to be like a 30-day window. Now it's only going to be 2 weeks, 15 days. It's going to be nuts in May. I mean, I think that coach was right on. So it's going to be, that's the next storyline to watch here in May is like Alabama, Washington, among these 5 teams that have changed head coaches, they're going to be going to that portal aggressively in May. And we're going to see something we haven't quite ever seen. Because, again, another unintended consequence of this, the NCAA back in December, because of what was going on nationally and lawsuits and Congress and all that stuff, put out guidance saying, hey, multi-time transfers, you're immediately eligible now. So it's pretty much like, I've transferred 3 times. I can go into the portal again and go play at Alabama next season. So it's the free range out there. And, coaches have felt this pain across college football, but for the first time, Alabama, and it's been magnified at Alabama because it's so many big time players all of a sudden. Plus, you couple that with, well, we just lost the greatest coach of all time for the last 17 years. No one's ever going to be able to match what he does, let alone come close to it. And we're losing these players. A lot of these coaches are hopeful that this puts a light on what they've been facing to a lesser extent for several years, and maybe the decision makers can kind of figure things out. And not to get too long-winded here, but I had also some other coaches that didn't put this in the story. Some of this stuff was just, I mean, I got some text messages, man. Like, these coaches are busy. They're right. They wrote paragraphs, like an essay of like why this system's broken, why NIL is a problem. But not a lot of coaches, a few of the coaches went into big rants about NIL, and that's the root cause of a lot of these issues and all that. And I had one coach, I didn't put this in the story, now I'm thinking of it, I probably should have, but he goes, no college coach is going to come out publicly and say they hate NIL, it's this and that and whatever, but we all feel that way because it's ruined the way they go about building rosters. It's ruined being able to have personal connections with players because it's gone 1 second here or the other. But also, for me, when I'm seeing this and reading this, and I sit there and think, well, this is what you guys, coaches, have been doing for your entire life. You go somewhere, you coach for a couple of years, then you leave in the middle of the night. And these players can't follow you. Now that they can, some of them do, some of them don't. It's a mess. Yes. I don't know how anybody fixes it, but it was really interesting to me. I simply reached out to a lot of coaches and said, what do you think college football looks like after Nick Saban? And do you feel bad at all about what's happening to their roster? And the response, I was surprised that the general consensus was like, dude, what's happening in Alabama is tragic. It's terrible for them. And hopefully this puts a light on things about what we've been going through as well, and we start fixing this issue. I was not expecting that.
I think what's fascinating, Brandon, a lot of what you said is, but you mentioned that May portal window, and it feels like you're somewhat giving a PSA to all the fans out there listening that, hey, your favorite team's best player he may not be there after the May 4th. Like, if you've got a really good player on your team and you're one of those middle of the pack or bottom third teams, let's just say in the SEC, if you're Mississippi State, if you're Arkansas, if you're South Carolina, if you're Kentucky, like, nobody's safe. That's basically what you're saying. Nobody is going to be safe in that May portal window. If Bama wants them, I mean, are they at least not going to take the call, right? I mean, it's crazy.
Right. I mean, a lot of players obviously went to Alabama to play for Saban. That's why they stuck around. Player relationships with coaches still matters. Everybody gets kind of blinded by this money conversation, thinking that, oh, they're just going there for NIL. That has something to do with it. But a lot of it's like, I want to go freaking play for Nick Saban. Duh. You know? But also, when things settle down, I mean, Alabama still didn't have their staff built yet. You know? I mean, if you are a quarterback or an offensive player of any sort, like, why wouldn't you want to go play for Kalen DeBoer in Alabama? I mean, obviously what he's done over the years from Indiana to Fresno State and Washington, let alone, like, I hate to say it, but like, go back and look at the stuff they're doing at Sioux Falls in the NAIA, a decade ago. I mean, this guy just, like, he finds a way to score points and big players make big plays. And so, no one is safe. And when coaches start complaining about, because they will, if Alabama comes calling for these players, go blame the NCAA, because they allowed players to have multi-time transfers and be immediately eligible. I mean, it seems like every couple months there's like some new development where we go, okay, that's good. That's a good thing. And then like somewhat we go, oh wait. But that's my prediction. I agree with that Big 12 head coach I was speaking to, that starting May 1st, it's gonna be war.
Mhm. Brandon, speaking of one of those big time transfers to leave Alabama, Caleb Downs is on the market. Do you think he ends up at Georgia? And piggybacking off of that, does this now clear the way for Kirby Smart and company to really take over college football? Because it felt like Nick Saban was sort of that last thing standing in their way.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he doesn't go to Georgia and follows T-Rob there. I think it's a big thing. Ohio State obviously is, I think, another team to watch there, but it looks like Georgia. I don't think this allows Kirby Smart to be the next dynasty team, so to speak, program. And I say that because of this. We talk about what's a blueprint to win these days. I think what you saw at Washington and Michigan this past year is a good blueprint going into the 12-team playoff era. Their blueprint was, one, you got to have talent, but the retention of talent and convincing kids who are about to go to the NFL to stay on campus. And if you look across college football right now, there are two programs that have been magnificent in doing that this offseason: Ohio State and Oregon. And I'm very interested to see if maybe this year is the year Ohio State wins a national championship, despite Ryan Day trying to stub his own toe by hiring Bill O'Brien. I saw a tweet out there that Bill O'Brien has managed to coach 8 years alongside Bill Belichick and or Nick Saban and has never won a title. I mean, good God. Talk about being handed a golden goose and throwing it in the lake. I mean, Bill O'Brien, man. But I think that's the new blueprint, is retention and very veteran rosters, because it is going to be an absolute damn grind in the playoff, playing potentially 4 games or whatever, in addition to maybe a conference championship game. The preparation, the luck you need, the health you need to maintain, and then just the savviness of these players when it comes game time and crunch time. You got to have veteran guys out there, and that's as talented as Washington was, obviously, a receiver and everything this year. A big reason why they were in the national championship game is because of the veteran players, 5th and 6th year guys that they had on that roster. And the same goes for Michigan. Just go look at that 2 deep.
Brandon, what chance does Washington have to rebound from this? Losing all these guys in the portal. They hired, excuse me, I believe, Jed Fish over from Arizona. He was that next hot name. Can the Huskies rebound, go into the Big Ten? I mean, it's
Ooh.
Alabama, we look at them and think, okay, they're going to be active in the portal. They're going to go target guys. I'm sure Washington will as well, but they don't have that Alabama A. They don't have that history and tradition, if you will. Like, how does Washington rebound from what's happened to them in the portal?
Well, Washington's, I think, got one of the better NIL programs and organizational structures out there. And a lot of that had to do with Kalen DeBoer. They got a lot of money around Washington. I don't think enough people have realized that and looked at that. So that's something to watch going, of course, when I mentioned May for Alabama, May for Washington could be big for them in the portal. But man, they lost a lot of guys, and not just a lot of guys, but those veteran guys and just the talent. I mean, how do you replace Michael Penix? I mean, good God. The guy's incredible. I think they're going to be in for a rough go. Very similar to what we saw with TCU this past year coming off a run to the national championship game. They similarly lost a great quarterback and a lot of veteran players, especially defensively, from that team, and they look completely different this past season. And I think Washington is very much in line to be in that same boat going into the Big Ten. To be quite honest, I'm kind of surprised Jed Fish took that job. And the reason why I say that is because he had so many great players returning at Arizona. They were going to be a top 15 team in the preseason, potential to get into the playoff in this new expanded field, going into the Big 12, where the Big 12 is wide open this upcoming year. I mean, I can only name like one team that I could not consider a Big 12 contender this year, and that's Cincinnati. Everybody else, I think, has like a legit shot, or you can make an argument to win the Big 12 this upcoming year with OU and Texas leaving. So Arizona loses Fish from that. I think maybe Fish was sitting there thinking, well, I'll just take my quarterback and receivers and some of that. And it doesn't look like they're going to leave Arizona to go to Washington. So he's got to go take up a whole new thing. And the long-standing groupthink among coaches and agents in the industry was that Fish was going to wait another year or two to go and try and get the Florida job. He's got connections there. And obviously, Billy Napier's on the freaking hot seat. I don't care what Scott's from the AD there said. Strickland at this point, I like Scott. I covered him previously at Mississippi State when I was a beat reporter there more than a decade ago. He's come out in the media saying, hey, he's on the hot seat or whatever. Well, the reason why he's saying that is because he's directly tied to Billy Napier. And if Billy Napier's out, Strickland is most likely out too. So anyway, I thought Fish would stick around, see about that, and potentially some other bigger gigs, or for that matter, an NFL job. I think in a lot of ways, he's almost resetting the clock on his own head coaching career by going to Washington. Unless he knows something I don't about going into the Big Ten and having some success here in the first couple of years, he could go from a hot cake to just absolute, like, ice cold here in the next like 6 months.
Brandon, sticking with this theme of the transfer portal, looking at some of the SEC teams that had success there over this last portal cycle, Texas A&M and Mike Elko, extremely active. I think number one in the latest rankings. Obviously, what Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss did was wildly impressive. South Carolina was very active. Kentucky was very active. What are your top takeaways from the SEC teams that had massive success in the transfer portal in this previous cycle?
Well, luckily for A&M, their coaching change happened not in January, because if that happened in January, they'd be very similar spot where Alabama is. If they'd be worse, because they're already hemorrhaging guys. But if that didn't happen, it happened in December. They got their ducks in a row. They made their hire, and they were able to go attack the portal when it was still open and players were entering, and look at the class they've brought in. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be great going into next season, but they definitely have won the portal. Ole Miss, I mean, they've done the best job out of anybody this year. Lane Kiffin has gone all in on, we got to win a championship this year. 2024 is our year. This is the roster. This is how we do it. They're super talented, probably the most talented top to bottom Ole Miss team of all time. But the big question, I think, in the offseason is going to be, how do you get all these hired guns, so to speak, to gel together quickly and put together? That's going to be a great storyline to follow, and one that's going to rely on how guys like Jackson Dart and other players who've been on that roster for 2 or 3 years, bring them in and build that team from the inside out. And I'm talking about in the locker room and culture and all that stuff. That'll be fascinating to watch. Um, you mentioned A&M. How about Texas? Just killing it, getting like the top players in any position they needed. The number one ranked guy in the 24/7 sports rankings. And then again, I think the guy, I call him the king of the balancing act. It's Mike Norvell at Florida State. All he does is bring in top 10 high school classes and top 5 or top 10 transfer portal classes every year. He doesn't overdo it in the portal. He just complements what he's bringing into the high school, and he's done it again. And I know a lot of people are joking, well, they're just the Alabama cast-off system because they've brought in 5 guys, Alabama transfers into the program, but they're all 5 good players. And then also, they just flipped a 5-star edge rusher for the class of 2025 from Alabama to commit to Florida State. And I know everybody's just like, well, Florida State had a shot this past year. They're not going anywhere because Mike Norvell is every year is the same. He's building that roster. And when he brings transfer portal pieces in, they have managed to take guys that were highly coveted, that were maybe mid-round NFL guys at the time, and develop them into potential first, second round type guys. Jared Verse, for example. Keon Coleman came in and just absolutely blew the doors off the place at receiver. That's coaching, that's development. And that's, I'm not going on a tangent here, but I always hear people like criticizing Norvell, like, well, his coaching staff doesn't develop high school talent. Like, yeah, they do. And not just that, but more impressive to me is they bring in portal talent, and in 2 years they transform them into the best players at their position, if not the most elite players going into the NFL draft. So Florida State's not going anywhere. They are built, that roster, to continue to contend here year after year. And I think what Mike Norvell's been doing in the portal, one, hasn't been looked at enough, but especially this year, just another top 5 class in the portal for him.
Brandon, outside of Georgia, because that's the very obvious answer, who does Nick Saban's retirement most open the door for in the SEC to ascend to the top of the conference?
Texas. A lot of the same type of players they're recruiting, especially offensively. And yeah, it opens the door for them. And it's so impressive what Sark has done and transforming the recruiting profile of that program. I've covered a few Texas games over the last few years, but that first year for Sark, I covered their trip to Arkansas because it's right in my backyard. So I was like, I'm gonna go check this out. They were manhandled on the offensive and defensive lines. And I was sitting there going, how the hell are they going to contend in the SEC? How are they going to even be able to get guys on campus and develop them in the next 2 years to be ready for the SEC? And boy, they did it. It's almost like right after that season, they were like, well, we know exactly what's wrong and we're going to go get the guys to fix this. And they did. And I think Texas is the one that's going to benefit the most from this. Yeah, if you're an A&M fan, you just got to be beside yourself secretly. They won't admit it, but they left the shadow of Texas from the Big 12 and got into the SEC a decade ago. And if you look at the numbers, when it comes to blue chip talent in the state of Texas, it almost flipped from in favor of Texas to Texas A&M when A&M joined the SEC. And this is before Manziel and all that stuff really started to take hold. I mean, that first, like when they announced, it almost started changing then. Manziel obviously helped, but it continued for a decade. Now that the scales have already started balancing and Texas even back in the SEC, I hate to say it, but it's like Big Brother's about to show why they're the big brother still in that state when it comes to recruiting. And A&M's window, I think, is come and gone to potentially win an SEC title and get in the playoff. And I think what they did a year or two ago, recruiting wise, signing the best recruiting class ever. And they're about to be the first number 1 recruiting class to never play for a national championship because of the portal. A lot of those guys are gone. There's been a coaching change, and it's a new era we're in. Just because you have the number 1 recruiting class 1 year doesn't guarantee you're going to be the national championship game within 4 years, like every team ever has been. If you look back at the 24/7 sports rankings, A&M is going to be that one lone outlier now.
Brandon, a number of SEC coaches enter the 2024 season on a bit of a hot seat, or at least seats that are warming up. Let's say the Vegas number, I give it to you at 2.5, over under 2.5 coaches fired after 2024. You taking the over or the under on that number?
2.5 coaches fired after when? I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question.
This next season, the 2024 season. So this next, whether it's in the season, after the season, what have you.
2.5 in the SEC. Let me think of the names here.
I think two of them are really obvious with Billy Napier and Sam Pittman. I mean, I think of, maybe Clark Lee at Vandy if they win 2 games again. Maybe Shane Beamer's seat is heating up, although I don't think it's going to happen, but it is heating up. I think that's fair.
Under.
Gosh,
I don't know.
I feel like there's always one that surprises us. So it's like Pittman and Napier would be the obvious. I wonder if there's one more in there that would.
And this past year, because of the lack of turnover in the SEC, that we might be set up for a bigger turnover rate this year. I think if Clark Lee doesn't somehow win at least like 4 or 5 games this year, he's probably out. I hate to say it because I think he's got a good plan there. Pittman and Napier have like fire me schedules. I mean, I don't know.
Which of those two do you think is more likely to be back in 2025, Napier or Pittman?
Napier, just because, as I mentioned earlier, Scott Strickland, the AD there might be like, I'm tied to him. I got to save this for another year. Plus, he's in a short. He hasn't been there as long. Pittman's I think in a heap of trouble just because it's been a downward trajectory since that great season they had a couple of years ago, and also you just hired Bobby Petrino, and if that don't work out, what the hell's your next step offensively? And you keep changing things. That's not a good look. That schedule's tough. But yeah, I think Napier most likely to survive between the two.
Brandon, last question. We'll get you out of here. Portal or NIL? You can only fix one. Which do you think would make the bigger positive impact in college football if it were to be fixed and some regulations put in place? Fixing NIL or fixing the way the portal works?
NIL, and I don't think you limit what the players can earn. I think that's stupid. Everybody's talking about salary cap stuff. It's so stupid. Let the players earn what they earn. If someone's quote unquote dumb enough or smart enough to pay a player $2 million to bring him there, let him do it. Let the kid get the money. Good God. But there needs to be some guidelines with NIL as far as transparency. Let's just put it out there, like how much the kids are getting. And also, let's go ahead and move forward with some sort of system like NCAA President Charlie Baker has proposed of the schools pay, at least $30,000 a year to these kids. Just do that as a baseline because a lot of these guys don't have NIL deals. Just give them that. Give them their scholarships in addition to some money because they are employees. They can't do anything in their lives outside of freaking football or athletics. Heck, I remember when I was in school 20 years ago, and there were players, specialists, backup specialists on the team that couldn't go get a summer job at Walmart. I remember one guy being told, you can't do it. You don't have the time to do it, but also we're just really not going to let you. And it's like, well, how the hell am I going to freaking eat this summer? So yeah, pay the players, let the schools do that, and have some transparency around NIL. The portal, that obviously needs to be tweaked. They need to do something, but you just, the toothpaste out of the tube, as people say. You can't all of a sudden just go back and go, whoa, you guys were free to leave. Not now. We're locking the doors. Keep drinking. No, I want to go home. I want to go somewhere else. I'm a bar hopper. So that's what I would do.
Brandon Marcello, 24/7 Sports, does a fantastic job talking all things college football. Go follow him on social media at @BMarcello. Brandon, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Appreciate you. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, that was Brandon Marcello. Appreciate him taking the time. Really good stuff, guys. Like I mentioned, check out that article that he dropped earlier this morning. Really, really good stuff in regards to Alabama, the transfer portal. I thought it was interesting, the reaction from the coaches, not what you would think, celebrating, right, being happy at Bama's demise. They actually have empathy for what Kalen DeBoer, that entire staff, are going through. So really interesting stuff, guys. Hey, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, you heard us touch on it in that conversation. Nick Saban's retirement. It clears the door for someone to come in, take over the SEC, if you will, be right up there with the Dogs. Is it Texas? I very well think it could be, guys. We'll talk about that, all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entries. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both in the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Friday, January the 19th, 2024. I want to once again say thank you to our good friend Brandon Marcello of 24/7 Sports for taking the time to chat. It was a great conversation with Brandon. Guys, highly encourage you to go check out his work over at 247sports.com. Again, thank you all so much for being here, guys. Continue to leave us your questions, your comments, whatever else you may have. Your texts as well, 843-790-3377. Also, guys, you can call that number in our second hour. If you cannot make it in the second hour, right, you want to reach out to us, you can leave us a voicemail at that number as well, guys. Plenty of ways to get in touch with us and highly encourage you do so. With that being said, guys, as Nick Saban retires and Alabama faces uncharted territory, faces new adversity, with it comes opportunity for others. And one of those schools out there, right, the conversation we've had a lot over the last week and a half or so since Nick Saban made it official, he was hanging it up, is, okay, who are the biggest winners in the SEC and in college football moving forward? Which program is best set up to take advantage of what's going down in Tuscaloosa? Now, the very obvious answer is Georgia. And that's why most of the times when I ask that question, I say, hey, somebody besides Georgia. Because I agree, guys. Georgia is a beast. They are a behemoth. I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. I think Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs are set up well to really, guys, be that team in the SEC. I'm not saying in a 12-team college football playoff world that Georgia is going to do what Alabama did. I'm not saying Kirby Smart's going to lead Georgia to 5 more national championships. But I think we'd all agree Nick Saban's retirement certainly clears the path for Kirby Smart and the Dogs to be atop the SEC, arguably alone. But another program that I think Nick Saban's retirement effectively helps is a newcomer to the league. I turn my attention directly to Austin, Texas, and what Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns are doing. I'm not saying Texas is going to come in and immediately overtake Georgia. That's not what I'm saying. But, guys, I think Texas, the question has been, how are Texas and Oklahoma going to fare in the SEC? Who are you buying more stock in as a program as they enter the SEC? I think both did a really good job of laying a solid foundation coming into the league. But, guys, when you look at Texas, I don't think Texas is just ready to come into the SEC and compete on a week-in, week-out basis. I don't think they're just ready to be a force. I think they're ready to come in and take the Southeastern Conference by storm. When you look at this Texas Longhorns program and what Steve Sarkisian has done in such a short amount of time. Again, guys, I mentioned Sark. He's one of the best in college football. One of the best coaches. Guys, we dropped our way too early head coach rankings, which, of course, you guys recall that because we had Nick Saban at the top. He retires literally that day, which is even crazy to think about. And, of course, we went back. I had to make some adjustments. Kirby Smart, number one. Right behind him there, you've got Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, yes, but Steve Sarkisian as well, who I think, no doubt, whether you have him 2, you have him 3, he's a top 3 head coach in the SEC, one of the best in college football. So you've got Sark. You have the right guy, in my opinion, leading the charge in Austin. Then you look at the quarterback position. Texas getting a huge boost when Quinn Ewers announced that he was coming back for the 2024 season. Also, Arch Manning right behind him, guys. And Quinn Ewers is a bona fide Heisman Trophy contender. He threw for 5,656 yards last season, 37 touchdowns. Excuse me, that's his first 2 seasons combined. My apologies. I was about to say that'd be crazy. First 2 seasons combined, over 5,000 yards passing, 37 total touchdowns. And of course, behind it, like I mentioned, you have elite depth with Arch Manning, who right now, is still a Texas Longhorn. And I don't think he's going anywhere, guys. I really don't. I think Arch Manning's in a good position. Everything you want at Texas is still intact. And so instead of going somewhere else and starting over, just wait one more year. Just wait one more year, and you're the guy under center in Austin. You look at the rest of this team, guys. You know, you lose some things at running back. Jonathan Brooks and Keelan Robinson are gone. You bring back C.J. Baxter, Jadon Blue, Savion Red, and Trey Wisner. That's going to be a storyline for Texas going into spring ball, going into fall camp. Who is that RB1, right? You're going to have a lot of new faces on the outside, too. This is probably going to be the biggest question I have for Texas. Xavier Worthy is gone. Adonai Mitchell is gone. Jordan Whittington is gone. Jatavion Sanders at tight end is gone, right? You do get Jonte Cook back. You get DeAndre Moore back. You get Gunnar Helm back at tight end. And you got a bunch of new faces, highly talented but unproven. But the reason I feel so strongly about Texas competing in the SEC immediately, guys, you go back a couple years to when Texas got their brains beat in at Arkansas. They were not good enough on the line of scrimmage. They were not. Simply put, they were manhandled up front. What Texas has done in recruiting, in the portal, and the way they've been able to completely flip both the offensive line and the defensive line. Now, big storyline again for Texas. You lose your D-line coach to LSU. One of the best defensive line coaches in all of college football. There's a reason there was such a celebration down there in the Bayou when LSU was able to land him. But on the offensive line, guys, you return most of your starters from a year ago. It's a veteran group, right? You get your left tackle back, your left guard, your center, your right guard. A lot of guys who have played meaningful snaps are back on that Texas offensive line. And then you look at the defensive front, guys. You got to replace the interior, but you get Barron Sorrell back, Ethan Burke, right? On the interior, you get Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton. You get edge Justice Finkley back, edge Jamon Tapp back. And again, the way you've recruited at that position is encouraging to say the least. Then, guys, those are just the guys returning, by the way. You might be wondering, Chris, no, there's more. Oh, I know there's more. We're getting there. So you've got a really strong nucleus. Then you look at what Texas has done in the portal. And I don't think they're done yet, guys, right? Steve Sarkisian's shown a great willingness to use the transfer portal, as all great coaches in college football these days do. And you look at who Texas has picked up in the portal. By the way, really quickly, side note, on the recruiting side of things, because portal, it seems like, just outweighs everything when it comes to these conversations. Texas had the second-ranked recruiting class in college football for this past cycle. So they've been recruiting at an extremely high level, right? Like the foundation of the talent you need to compete at the very top of the SEC is there. But then you look at the portal haul, guys. Then you look at the portal haul. And I mean, top to bottom, it is really impressive. And you talk about addressing needs, guys. We mentioned wide receiver, right? Who's going to step up at wide receiver? Well, all Texas did was went in the portal. They grabbed Isaiah Bond from Alabama. We all recall that name. Mr. 4th and 31 himself was the number 1 rated wide receiver in the portal. They snagged him up. How about another wide receiver? Matthew Golden from Houston, really underrated prospect, was a 4-star kid. He comes to Texas now from Houston. How about at the tight end spot, right? Another fun weapon for Sark to use. Amari Niblack, he comes over from Alabama as well. They also added Kendrick Blackshire, a linebacker from Alabama. Guys, they've added 3 Bama players. I doubt they're done. Highly doubt they're done. You then, guys, look how they started the portal on the defensive side. Great pickup from Clemson, Andrew Makuba, the defensive back. They picked up an edge as well, Trey Moore. So when you combine what they've got coming back, what they have added via recruiting in the portal, and obviously, guys, you get Quinn Ewers back, which that's the key piece, right? Getting your quarterback back. Not saying Arch Manning couldn't be that guy, but you always want to bring back a guy with experience who's done it before. Texas is set up incredibly well, I think, to compete immediately at the highest level. I'd be stunned if the Texas – oh, no, by the way, what also helps this past season, they went to the college football playoff. Now the playoff is 12 teams. I think Texas, guys, is in great position to be an immediate force in the SEC on the gridiron. Again, they're competitive where it matters most, in the trenches. They've shored that up immensely. Give Steve Sarkisian all the credit in the world. They also, and I know Bama wasn't normal Bama, but they went into Tuscaloosa and beat Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide like a drum. So, dare I say, Texas will not be intimidated by nearly any SEC environment they face. Now, I'm sure there's plenty of SEC fan bases out there that are saying, okay, Chris, all right, we'll see. We'll see. And as I pull up Texas's 2024 football schedule here, they open up with Colorado State at home. I have to go to Michigan in week 2. That's a really, really fun one. Really interesting. Got to go to Michigan in week 2. You then have UTSA, ULM, and Mississippi State before your bye week to kick off October. Guys, if they beat Michigan, Texas is undefeated going into the month of October. Then you get Oklahoma in that annual rivalry game, the Red River rivalry. All right? Second SEC game, Georgia at home. So you get the dogs on your home field. I mean, guys, your road trips, get this. Texas's road trips, right? So Texas OU is an SEC game. So that's every year going to be played out there in Dallas, right? The SEC road trips, because they got to go to Michigan as well. The SEC road trips, where they're truly on the road, at Vandy, at Arkansas, and at Texas A&M. Vandy, wash. Arkansas, is Sam Pittman even going to be the head coach on November the 16th? And then Texas A&M in that rivalry game, that one will be incredibly intense. But Mike Elko, first-year head coach. So the schedule sets up well for Texas to sort of kick the door down their first year in the SEC. The foundation, I think, guys, is there for the Texas Longhorns to sort of fill in where Alabama has now fallen out. Because Georgia's still up there. And Texas, right? Georgia's in the fancy neighborhood. Right? They're in the expensive neighborhood. Alabama was the neighbor. Or better yet, Georgia was Alabama's neighbor. Now Georgia's moving in. They're like, we're taking this house. We're upgrading. And there's only a certain number of spots in this neighborhood. Bama's about to move out. Is Texas going to be moving in? Guys, you also look, too, I wanted to mention this because we only talk football when it comes to this stuff. But I think Texas being a brand in the SEC, they're already a massive brand. But being a successful program, athletic program, if you will, in the SEC, it goes beyond just football. I mean, I know we had some fun yesterday with Rodney Terry and basketball, and they've got to figure some things out. That is a program with proud history and tradition, and I think they've got a good foundation to the work. They'll get it figured out. I believe Texas will. But, guys, how about on the diamond? How about on the diamond? How about on the baseball diamond where Texas has, I mean, Texas is, they're one of the, I would say, 3 or 4 programs in college baseball that, like, they are an it program. Like, when you think of college baseball, you think of Texas. You really do. You think of Augie Garrido. You think of national championships. You think of Omaha when you think of Texas baseball. They've got tradition. They've got great history, a standard of excellence at Texas. And oh, by the way, they got a great program right now. So I think what Texas is bringing to the league even more, even outside of on the gridiron, is something that Longhorn fans and SEC fans should be excited about. But make no mistake, when it comes to the football side of things, times are a-changing in the SEC. And as Bama moves out, maybe Texas can move in. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, what's the second most popular sport in the SEC? Is it basketball or is it baseball? We'll talk that and more on the other side of this break, guys. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entries. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both on the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Friday, January the 19th, 2024. Appreciate you all tuning in. Want to say thank you again for your love and your support, guys. Stick around. The daily mailbag segment of the show, taking your questions, comments, and calls coming up shortly. And looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say here on this Friday as we go into the weekend. Guys, that being said, we keep the conversation rolling here with a really fun conversation. We all know that football is king in the SEC. But what is the second most popular sport? And I feel like this is something I don't think I've ever seen anyone talk about this before. And I think it's a fascinating conversation. When it comes to the second most popular sport, is it baseball or is it basketball? What plays second fiddle to football in the SEC? Now, again, many folks out there may scoff at this question, all right? Especially those that are not in the Southeastern Conference or not fans of an SEC team. But you know as well as I do, if you look around any SEC fan base, you'll know there's an argument to be had, right? So I posed the question to you guys. It's about 24 hours later from when I posed this question. In your opinion, which sport is more popular in the SEC? And so these are the results. We ran a poll on X, on Instagram, and we asked you guys on Facebook. So without further ado, here are your results. Now, this is only 1,081 votes, okay? It's not like it's 100,000 people voting. But still, these numbers are really, really interesting. Really interesting. This is what you guys had to say. What is the second most popular sport? Which sport's more popular, baseball or basketball? 70%. It was a 70-30 split, guys. Out of 1,081 votes, 70% of you said baseball. And this is on X specifically. 70% on X said baseball was the more popular sport. On Instagram, we got a little bit less than, let's see, a little bit over 200 votes, if you will. 72% of you said baseball. We go and look at the comments on Instagram, right? We threw this up as a post. Baseball, baseball, baseball. We even had somebody comment. This is from TJ_Baron15. He says, I feel like for most fans, basketball is a filler sport that gets us by for the time being. No disrespect to basketball. I hope we win every game, but it's football, baseball, then everything else. Somebody else commented basketball, baseball, 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 basketball, basketball, baseball, baseball. So, I mean, you can tell there's a split, but a lot of baseball. A lot of baseball here. And as we look on Facebook, guys, a lot of responses on Facebook as well. What's the second most popular sport? Which one's more popular? 100 comments. 100 comments on this on Facebook. Somebody commented and said, you mean spring football or baseball? He's not even acknowledging basketball. I prefer baseball, but I would say basketball. In a relative sense, baseball. The passion amongst actual fans is higher. Sheer numbers, both attendance and revenue, easily basketball. Hands down, baseball. Depends on the university, somebody says. That's fair. Baseball, football, baseball, then basketball. Counting down a baseball season could care less about basketball. Basketball, baseball. Depends on the year. Football. Somebody said football. To hell with them both, right? Again, a lot of baseball. And so this is why I brought this up. It was somewhat of a case study for yours truly because, obviously on a day in, day out basis, like my goal and objective is to talk about the things that matter, right? The top 20% of storylines or things that, people care about, if you will. And it's just so interesting to me. And this is a thing that only the SEC, right? You don't see this in other conferences. When you look at it, my take on it, guys, specifically, when you look at it, basketball, there is more revenue. There is more media coverage. There's more TV coverage. There's more coverage in general. And obviously, guys, March Madness stands alone as maybe the greatest postseason that any sport has, right? Like, there's nothing like March Madness. But when I look across the SEC, the amount of schools where basketball is more popular than baseball. Kentucky, for sure. Outside of that, guys, I'm not sure I can name another. Really, truly. Really, truly. I mean, guys, we can sit here and go down the list, right? We can go down the list of these SEC schools. Which is more popular at that school, basketball or baseball? Alabama, this one's close. I think this one's close just because Alabama basketball has been better than Alabama baseball. Bama's a unique case where it's football. It's just like it's all football, right? Bama, I'll give you basketball there. I'll give it to you. Arkansas, I'd say baseball, guys. As good as Eric Musselman's program has been, Dave Van Horn has been just as good, if not better. Auburn, actually, Auburn's another good one. With what Bruce Pearl is doing, I think you could argue basketball here as well. Florida, baseball. Georgia, baseball. Kentucky, basketball. LSU, baseball. Mississippi State, baseball. Mizzou, do they give a damn about either one of them? I guess Mizzou would be basketball. They're so bad now, though. I don't know. Oklahoma, baseball. Ole Miss, definitely baseball. South Carolina, without a doubt, baseball. Tennessee, that one might be a push because both programs are so good. Texas, baseball. Texas A&M, baseball. And Vanderbilt, they wish it was baseball season every day. So I think when you look at baseball versus basketball in the SEC, though, basketball has more numbers, right? They have more revenue. They've got bigger arenas. More people show up and watch games. What baseball has, while the numbers may be smaller, I think the intensity is much greater. Because people that love baseball. I mean, people that love, you don't just kind of like baseball. You don't show up to a baseball game and kind of like it. You love it. You're a diehard, right? Like you love the ins and outs. You know, we see these environments all across the SEC, the hostile environments of the SEC. So I do think personally, guys, and I'm removing bias. I'm not just saying this because, guys, admittedly, I'm a baseball guy. I played college baseball. I don't dislike basketball, but for me, it's more so like I love baseball from the sense of like football's 1A, Baseball's 1B. You know what I mean? Like, I'm that passionate about it. And I think that's how a lot of others are as well. There's just not that. And I think too, somebody pointed this out this morning. The high-end success that the SEC has had in baseball, where it's like almost half the field every year are SEC teams. So many SEC teams are hosting regionals. And, you know, the SEC's won national championships on national championships on national championships. The SEC has not had that level, that high level of success in basketball like they've had in baseball. So I think for a number of reasons, we see all the numbers. I think there's enough there to affirm that when it comes to the best conference in the land, football is king. There is no debate. Baseball is the second most popular sport over basketball. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we're going to dive into, speaking of basketball, the SEC weekend slate. And then from there, we'll jump right into your questions, your comments, and your calls as well. Guys, all that and more on the side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entries. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both on the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, It's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Friday, January the 19th, 2024. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, guys. Daily mailbag segment coming up in just a moment, guys. With that being said, continue to leave us your questions, your comments, your calls as well upcoming. But in the meantime, guys, we're talking all things SEC basketball. They packed slate of games. As I feel we're going to start to see who are the contenders in the league, who are the pretenders, right? I think we're getting to a point where a lot of teams' seasons are going to start to go different directions, right? The contenders will be separating themselves from the pretenders. And again, guys, we have got a great slate of games lined up. We will start in Fayetteville, Arkansas, hosting the South Carolina Gamecocks. I cannot wait, by the way, guys, to see the spreads on these games, right? The Vegas spreads, if you will. This is a 1 o'clock tip-off Eastern time in Fayetteville on SEC Network. You look at these two teams, guys. I mentioned two teams, two programs that could be going opposite directions. I think the winner and loser of this game, you're going to see that, right? Arkansas, they're holding on to hope that this season can be something they can salvage this season. Got a huge win at the buzzer a couple days ago against Texas A&M. Meanwhile, the Gamecocks looking to bounce back from a really brutal home loss to the Georgia Bulldogs, where they were 6.5-point favorites. South Carolina fans, hear me out on this one. Do not be surprised if you wake up tomorrow and Arkansas is the favorite in this game. Do not be surprised at all, because I think there's still a belief out there that, okay, South Carolina has been playing out over their skis. Georgia brought them back down to reality. I think most in the conference and nationally and even Vegas, that's more so how they view South Carolina. Arkansas, on the flip side, I think there's a belief that, you know what, as bad as they've been, they've got immense talent. And at some point, it's going to click for Eric Musselman's team. Now, what's intriguing in this game, guys, neither one of these teams is very good defensively at forcing turnovers. Each rank like outside of the top 250, both average around 10 turnovers or so per game that they force. Who's able to be more aggressive on the defensive side and make those big plays and make those big steals? On the flip side, who can protect the basketball, right? It all starts with Meechie Johnson for South Carolina. Miles Studi sidelined for a few weeks, so it puts even more pressure on Meechie to be that guy. That being said, I am going Arkansas in this game, guys. I think at Bud Walton Arena will be a great atmosphere on Saturday. I think Hog fans are holding out hope that this team can still turn it around. Guys, you look at their upcoming schedule, it sets up really nicely. If Arkansas can win this one, they can rattle off 3 or 4 or 5 in a row, get themselves right back in the thick of things. I think Arkansas, it was never a question of talent, just needed something to bounce their way. They got that against Texas A&M the other night. I think South Carolina licking their wounds from that Georgia loss, going on the road. Guys, again, it's really, really difficult to win on the road in the SEC. I don't care who you're playing. I think Arkansas will ride that momentum. I think they beat South Carolina in what's going to be a really good, close, competitive game. I think the Gamecocks are going to start to come back down to earth a little bit. Now sitting at 2-2 in conference play, I think this was always a team, guys, that was going to be a 7, maybe at best 8-win team in the league. I think that's still what they are. I think Studi being out hurts for South Carolina. I think Arkansas wins on the home floor, carrying that momentum over in this one and continues to fight to salvage their season. Now, we go to Knoxville, Tennessee, the 6th-ranked Tennessee Volunteers taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide. This is a 2 p.m. Eastern time tip-off on ESPN2. This is one of the games of the day, guys. Expect a lot of offense, a lot of scoring, a lot of offense. This one's going to be a really fun game back and forth. The question is this, guys. Can Dalton Knecht do it again? Can Dalton Knecht do it again? 3 straight games with 30 or more points. 39 points in the last game against the Florida Gators. And, of course, guys, you got this game at home. Rocky Top is going to be electric. Alabama, though, comes in. It's a sneaky upset opportunity right here. Bama with their offense, they get hot. They can beat anybody. But I do have to side with the Tennessee Volunteers here, guys, on the home floor. Again, I think this one's going to be a lot of fun. Very, very high scoring. This may be a game that whoever has the basketball last wins this game. I am going to go Tennessee, though, on the home floor to get it done. 3:30 p.m. Eastern tip-off in Starkville as Mississippi State takes on Vandy on the SEC Network, guys. This game needs no more explanation than Vandy stinks. I mean, guys, I am convinced. I don't think Vandy wins a single conference game. I just don't know who they beat. Will they slip up and win 1? Maybe they could slip up and win 2. Maybe it happens. But I don't see it. I really don't see it. I like Mississippi State to win. I like Mississippi State to get the job done. As I drop my mouse, I like Mississippi State to get the job done here. Easy win over the Vanderbilt Commodores. Guys, we go to the 4 o'clock game, 4 p.m. Eastern time tip-off. LSU hosts the Texas A&M Aggies. This is a game on ESPNU. And it's funny, I caught some grief this morning from our good friend Blake Ruffino of AYS Sports, who says, hey, anytime Texas A&M gets picked over LSU, we're going to have some problems. We're going to have some issues. Don't you dare do it. And I like what the Bayou Bengals are doing right now, guys. We had a piece this morning, one of our contributors, talking about LSU. Are they a contender? Are they a pretender? I like what LSU has done. I really do. I think Texas A&M on the road in this one, I think Buzz Williams' team, Wade Taylor, I think they show up ready to play. I think A&M pulls this off. I think A&M goes into the Bayou, goes into Baton Rouge. I think they find a way to get the job done. Wade Taylor leading the way with a really, really big game. Give me Texas A&M and that offensive attack to take down LSU. The 6 o'clock Eastern time tip-off, guys, on SEC Network features Kentucky. The 8th-ranked Cats take on the Georgia Bulldogs. This one's got upset written all over it. But I'm siding with Kentucky. I think Dillingham and the crew will get the job done, guys. Georgia coming off that big win against South Carolina at the CLA. I think the Dogs will give Kentucky a valiant effort. I think they'll give them a fight. I think they'll make Kentucky sweat. But Kentucky on the home floor, I got to go with the Cats. Missouri hosting the Florida Gators. Boy, you talk about a pair of teams that need a win. 8 p.m. Eastern time tip-off on ESPNU. Both of these teams are desperate for a victory. Missouri especially got staring at 0-5 if they fall here in the SEC. 0-5. You can't fall to 0-5. Florida, meanwhile, comes into this ball game. What are they? 1-3, I think, in conference play, right? So tough times for both these programs. Missouri's got to get off the schneid at some point. Like, Missouri it's weird to me. Like, I feel like they're too talented to be where they are, really, truly. And they've had some tough losses. It makes no sense to me how porous they are in conference play right now. I am going to go with the Missouri Tigers here, guys, to protect the home floor. I think they finally get off the schneid, finally get their first SEC win of the season. And for Florida, it's just more questions. It's more question marks on question marks on question marks for the Florida Gators. Finally, guys, an 8:30 p.m. Eastern time tip-off to close out the day. The only ranked-on-ranked matchup tomorrow in the SEC, the 13th ranked Auburn Tigers host the 22nd ranked Ole Miss Rebels on the SEC network. This one's going to be a lot of fun, guys. Ole Miss continuing to try to prove they're legit. Just lost to LSU. Chris Beard squad, how do they respond to that level of adversity? Guys, under normal circumstances, I would just, if they were playing maybe anybody else, I'd feel really, really good about Ole Miss looking a lot better, playing a lot better, and Chris Beard getting his team up off the mat. But there's nobody hotter in college basketball right now than the Auburn Tigers. Double-digit win after double-digit win after double-digit win. There's no reason to believe that won't happen here yet again. I think Auburn will continue to make a statement. I think they get the W. I think they win in blowout fashion, guys. It's all Auburn's been doing, and I think they will do it yet again against a hapless Ole Miss squad. You know that Auburn's arena is going to be shaking, by the way. You know Auburn's arena is going to be a straight-up madhouse. And for that reason, and the fact, oh, by the way, Auburn, one of the best teams in college basketball, I think they will get the job done, and they will take down the Ole Miss Rebels. Guys, that being said, let's go ahead and get it rolling. Daily mailbag, taking your questions, your comments, and your calls. The phone lines are open here on a Friday, January the 19th, 2024. I want to hear from you, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. You can call that number. You can text that number. You can comment on YouTube. You can comment on Facebook as well. Whatever you like, guys. Whatever works best for you. Really want to hear from you. And again, thank you all so much for being here as the phone lines are now officially open. Let's make sure here. Okay, good to go. Let's see. Let's go back through your questions here. Robbie Davis commented on YouTube. What's up, man? He said, what's up, Chris? Hope you have a great weekend. Thank you. Bruce said hello. Ethan K, happy Friday to you, sir. I thought I saw even Rebecca commented. Maybe not. Maybe not. Travi, what's going on? Appreciate you. Austin Holbrook says, Texas brings money to the SEC. It's really good for us SEC fans. Indeed. Indeed. Let's see. Justin says, what's up, TSUS fam and my guy Phillips at SECU Nation. TGIF, ready for the Court Cox game tonight. I think they bounce back and win by 10. Good chance to show how we face and overcome adversity. Okay, so Justin thinks the Gamecocks win by 10. Ethan K, which SEC team will lose the most players in the portal when it's all said and done? Very well be Bama. I think it's absolutely going to be Bama. Absolutely going to be Bama. Ethan K says, revenue-wise, I'm sure basketball is still second, but I think fans care more about baseball lately since the league has been so dominant in the last few decades. I agree. I mean, here's the thing. Ethan K, I'd mentioned this before, but the reality in the SEC is this. The reason football is king, or one of the many reasons, people are going to show up, attend the games, pack the stadiums, and watch football and consume the product no matter what. Even if the team is bad, if the team is good, if the team is somewhere in the middle, that's just how it is. Football is the ultimate attention grabber. Baseball and basketball are not that way. The reason I think baseball, I say it's the second most popular sport, baseball's been better than basketball. Like, people talk about the depth of the conference and it's this in football, this in basketball. Guys, the depth of the SEC in baseball is insane. truly, genuinely insane, right? The reality with baseball and basketball is this. Fans must have a product first before they show up. Fans must get a product on the floor or on the diamond before they invest their hard-earned dollars in going to games or even watching games. That's the reality of those two sports. And I think because of the fact that baseball has been at a much higher level, it's seen much higher levels of success. I mean, how many programs in the SEC have really had success in March Madness? How many? Kentucky, Auburn's had some success. Tennessee a little bit. They always seem to flounder in the Sweet 16 or whatever. Who else? Who else has, maybe Texas A&M here and there, but like versus baseball where, I mean, a number of teams. There are different teams winning the national title, it seems like, every other year. Mississippi State, Ole Miss, LSU, Florida, South Carolina, Vanderbilt. You know, the list goes on and on. So, I mean, I think because of that high-end success, and it's like, you got to put a product out there first. The baseball product in the SEC is still superior to the basketball product. And so I think that's one of the biggest reasons why it draws more interest, or at least it draws more passionate interest. Let's see. Going through your questions, your comments. Ethan K literally made my point. Outside of Kentucky, though, how many teams have been consistently winning in basketball as far as Final Fours go? Ethan K, you echoed my point, I guess, or maybe I echoed yours since you commented it earlier in the show. Ethan K also says, I just wish college baseball was marketed better. There needs to be much better coverage, especially for the SEC tourney through the College World Series. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%, Ethan K. I agree with you 100%. The lack of coverage is still disturbing. There's no doubt. Caleb says, my dude at SEC, you putting in that work. Appreciate you, my man. Thank you. James Kendall, Hugh Freeze, dark horse fired. James, I respect your attempt to think outside the box, but I will say no way. Unless it's a scandal. You predicting a scandal, James? Caleb says, I wonder if Mississippi State gives Levy longer than they did Arnett. Caleb, certainly they will. Yeah. I think the situation there, man, was even the fan base, Caleb, was saying that Zach Arnett, he's the best. He's the best of a bad situation. That's even what the fan base was saying. He's the best of a bad situation. He's not the long-term guy. And so it's like, man, when the fan base is saying it, you know they know it. You know they know it. No play in dinero. Happy Friday, sir. Happy Friday. Appreciate you. Eric says Texas isn't taking over anything. They have to go right through Athens, Georgia to do that. Did you not watch the Texas-Washington game? Georgia would have beat them by 11 points at minimum. Eric, I'm not telling you Texas is overtaking Georgia. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I think they're ready to maybe be that second team. At worst, the third team in the SEC. Because think about it. It's Georgia at the top. Who else? I mean, can you even argue Texas is not in the upper echelon there with Georgia? I'm not saying they're better than Georgia. They're going to overtake Georgia. I'm not saying that in the slightest. I'm just saying that Texas is ready to come in, take the league by storm, and be one of those teams. That's all I'm saying. Hey, we got a couple in here. Deepak says basketball. Del Rice says basketball over baseball. Billy Cotton says baseball. Second, hands down. Slayer of Queens said this. He has an interesting take. He says, will you cover the baseball seasons? Maybe he meant when. So back when I covered for the Gamecocks specifically, just highlighted basketball due to Carolina not being very good. I wonder how many of those votes voters are people who followed you for the baseball season. I mean, I think Slayer of Queens, you make somewhat of a good point. I will say this, though, when I was doing TSUS, like we broke down and predicted and covered every basketball game in depth. I got to be honest with you, Slayer of Queens. Maybe this just goes to show how much my mind has shifted and how much I've evolved. I can't believe the depth that I used to cover a South Carolina, Charleston Southern basketball game. Like, I genuinely can't believe it. Like, I can't believe I used to go into such deep detail when it's like, the reality is nobody really cares. That's an example of, I used to be very, very busy, but I was not being very, very productive. My time was not spent on high impact things. Too much low impact for my liking. So I get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying. But I don't know. I don't really think our audience is baseball slanted. I think it's South Carolina, to your point, Slayer. I think baseball is easily the number 2 sport at South Carolina. Easily. Football is king, but it's baseball. Baseball is the crown jewel at South Carolina. It always has been. Like, there are many things that Gamecock fans can put up with. The baseball program not being up to par is not one of them. It's not. It's simply not, guys. So I just simply think baseball is a more popular sport in Columbia than basketball. It's not even a slight on basketball, but it's just basketball's never been good enough for South Carolina fans to care about. So I think, Slayer, that's maybe why the poll went the way it did. So anyways, guys, 843-790-3377. Someone would love to hear from you. You can call that number, text that number, whatever you like. Billy Cotton says, Chris tells it like it is. Period. You don't like it, go to another site. Billy Cotton, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you. Ethan K., I get that most schools put their emphasis on one of the 3 sports, but why do you think we don't see more teams successful in multiple sports? Like Florida when they won it all in football and basketball in 07, 08. Ethan K., it's because that's just really, really hard to do. I mean, it's just, I mean, there's other schools having success across multiple sports. I mean, look at Tennessee. LSU for a while was having success across multiple sports. I mean, it's just hard, I think. It's just hard to time it all up. Austin Miller says, basketball is just something we talk about until baseball season starts. You know, Austin, I'll tell you this, though, man. I'm so excited now to be invested in good basketball. I really am. To be invested in basketball more. But even covering the basketball season from an SEC-wide lens, it really just, you know, here's what's funny, guys. Here's what's funny. Nobody complains about March Madness. Nobody complains about it. You know, like it's great. Having a field of 68, it's awesome. But it's so funny, the thing that people complain about what the 12-team playoff's going to do to college football, like, is that not college basketball every year? And like, we still love it and we love the postseason. But where I'm going with this is just like the regular season just kind of means nothing. Like, the games do mean something. You have to boost your resume. I get that, but it's like, there's not that level of energy and excitement like you get in March Madness. Like, I cannot wait to cover the SEC tournament and March Madness. I cannot freaking wait, guys. Cannot wait. And maybe baseball, you could argue, is the same. I mean, I like I said, I just love the game, guys. I love the game of baseball. I honestly love baseball because it's not football, right? When people ask me, what's your favorite sport to cover? You know, football, there's nothing like a game day. Nothing like it. And I love it for content reasons. I mean, there's so many reasons why. But the intensity of football, I actually really enjoy more so of the laid back nature of baseball. You know what I mean? Where it's like you lose a game, so what? Doesn't kill you, right? Show up tomorrow and go get them. You know what I mean? So I kind of like that. I honestly kind of it's a nice contrast. There's a nice contrast there to where it's not go like 24/7. It's like baseball is a lot more low key, a lot more relaxed, and I honestly enjoy that from time to time. So it's a good time. So, anyways, guys, that being said, we're going to jump into a quick break, our final break of the day. On the other side, we'll close out the show in style, taking more of your questions, your comments, your calls, and more here on this Friday. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas's Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entry. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both on the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back. Final 10 minutes or so here on this Friday as we close out this week, guys. What a fantastic week it's been, man. You know, as we sit here about 2/3 of the way through the month of January and you know, really not even a month completely like into the, not even a month into the SEC Unfiltered era. I am so ecstatic about what the future holds. I mean, I'm so happy we did what we did when we did it, because you think about it right now being January, you know, the football season, we've got 8 months before toe meets leather, 7.5 or so, building to that point, building through basketball season, building through baseball season, the successes we're seeing right now. I mean, I could not be happier with what's going on with content and the way business is progressing. So again, thank you all so much, guys. I truly cannot say thank you enough. It means the absolute world, and SEC Unfiltered to the moon, man. That's where we're taking this thing, to the moon and beyond the moon. Hell, that's why are we going to stop at the moon? No point in stopping there. So really, guys, cannot say thank you enough. We'll get back into your questions, your comments, everything else. Let's see. Briggs says, I'm going to have to come in and stand up for my sport, basketball. What's up, Briggs? Go check out Briggs' latest work, secunfiltered.com. And Auburn fans, if you're in here, had a message for you. What a week it's been with multiple fan bases, by the way, on the SEC Unfiltered Network. I mean, really, truly. Let's see. Delta says, we see what a great product, as you said, can do for a team in the women's basketball team. If South Carolina had that now, and historically in the men's game, Carolina fans would care about men's basketball like they do women's basketball. I mean, I definitely think Delta, again, Dawn Staley at South Carolina has proven that if you put a elite product on the floor, you'll pack it out. I mean, there's no question. You will pack it out. It can be done. It can be done. Ethan says, geography-wise, the South and West Coast are all about football and baseball. In the Northeast and colder states put much more emphasis on basketball because they can play year-round inside. Very good point. Very, very good point, my friend. Really excited, guys, for the slate of SEC basketball games tomorrow. Looking forward to these games. You know what's so funny? Like, Clemson people got really upset yesterday. Our friend Mark Ryan went and posted there's something endearing and lovable, which, you know what the weirdest thing is about Mark Ryan? Like, Mark comes on our show. He has not lately, guys, just because he's been dealing with some things off air, if you will, taking a bit of a hiatus. We'll come back at some point. We've been taking a hiatus. But I know that Mark doesn't agree with how Dabo Swinney utilizes or does not utilize the portal. I know that for a fact. Yet, for some reason, Mark goes on record. I know he doesn't love the portal and how it is, but the reality is what the reality is. It is what it is. But he goes out and says, there's something endearing and lovable about what Clemson's trying to do. Essentially, they're giving the middle finger to the new direction of college football. They're the only Power 5 school with no portal commits. It's easy to root for them because they're for what's right. And I know that Mark doesn't love the portal, but he also agrees you have to use it. I know that he agrees with that. So that post is really interesting for Mark. And I don't even know why Clemson fans got mad at me, because all I said was, I followed up, I quote posted, quote tweeted, whatever, and said, that's essentially what will lead to Dabo Swinney's downfall at Clemson and ultimately force him out of college football for good, because it's adapt or die. That's not even a hot take. It's not even a hot take. I don't know why Clemson fans are even upset about it. I think most of them would agree. Really, truly, genuinely, I think most of them would agree. If Dabo Swinney does not utilize the portal, then he's toast. He's history. He's donezo. I don't even know what the argument is. So, I don't know. Yesterday was a really big day, by the way, for the SEC Unfiltered brand with Barstool accounts. Barstool Clemson reposted that. We had, on a positive, Barstool Texas, Barstool Barstool East Carolina, Barstool Texas A&M. They all reposted the Omaha 8 predictions. So it was a fun day interacting with those folks. But yeah, that just kind of threw me off. It's just like, I'm sure you're trying to cope and you're upset that somebody's pointing out Dabo's shortcomings, but it's like, that as well as anybody with a brain. Anybody with a brain knows that if Dabo Swinney does not use the portal, he's cooked. He's cooked. Like, I mean, it's just not even a question. By the way, South Carolina making it official today with their running back coach, Marquell Blackwell, has been added as running backs coach at South Carolina. Shane Beamer set to speak to the media later today to introduce the additions, I assume, with the coaching staff. Blackwell's been introduced officially. I don't know if there's another one or not. So, anyways, you know what's interesting with South Carolina, man? South Carolina, Shane Beamer, what a guy. What a guy. He made it was almost like Shane Beamer intentionally. He wanted to make moves so the fan base couldn't say he didn't make moves. But he didn't even make the moves that people wanted. You know what I mean? Like, you get rid of the running backs coach. I think firing Montario Hardesty, that was the right call, right? Because of what he had done in recruiting, in the portal, in development. There were lots of reasons. But outside of that, there's been not a single defensive staff change. Not a single one. And then you hire James Coley, who effectively is coming in and taking Justin Stepp's place. Justin Stepp more than likely will not be returning to South Carolina. I mean, were the receivers the reason South Carolina went 5-7? Luke Day still at South Carolina, strength coach. No changes there. Like, Shane Beamer didn't even make the changes that people were hoping he'd make. I don't know, man. I just, God bless Gamecock fans. God bless that football program. God bless Shane Beamer. Because, my God, just sticking with the same 5-7 crew going to 2024, man. I don't know. I don't know. Bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it pays off. Anyways, I'm not even going to. I don't know. Guys, on that note, by the way, on the football note, of course, on Monday, guys, we'll break down everything that happened over the weekend on the hardwood. Either Monday or Tuesday, though, in the spirit of way too early season, Also, by the way, guys, starting next week, baseball guests will sort of take over SEC Unfiltered for really the following 2 weeks, 2.5, as we get ready for opening day. But either Monday or Tuesday, we're going to do way too early quarterback rankings for the 2024 season. So power ranking the signal callers for 2024. Going to be a lot of fun. Guys, in the meantime, hey, that's it. We've hit 2 o'clock. Appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much, guys, for yet another successful week. Your continued love and support. Be sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. Also, guys, be sure rate and subscribe the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, guys, and of course, social media. Follow us across social media for all of our content bleeding out of the eyeballs. Hey, I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. As always, guys, have a great weekend, and we will talk to you all on Monday.